So we are going to discuss today like general overview of API test automation, how we implemented to our CI/CD process, what exactly we test on backend side, and how we use Postman for it. So first of all, how it works. Let's say backend team pushes code. They have some changes, and they create a pull request for it on GitHub. QA team adds a label to appear that is associated with the test, with an API test, and then GitHub Actions see this label. The tests are being triggered, and Newman runs Postman tests, and then we see the results, and we decide if we can merge or if some changes should be done. What we test. First of all, testing, we have two types of testing, positive testing and negative testing. Positive testing is when we test some expected user behavior, something that we want user to do with our application. And here we test keys and values of each response. We test all the database operations like create, read, update, delete. We check all the status codes and make sure that all the 500 codes are handled. We also check data filtering, sorting, and pagination. These are things that often cause problems in a lot of web applications, so they should be verified really thoroughly. We also check schema validation and most used user flows and user scenarios for a smoke test. And there's also negative testing, something that users shouldn't do, but sometimes do, for on purpose or because they don't understand something or misconfigure something. And in this case, we need to make sure that no intruders can gain access to anything that they should not see or access, that all the errors are handled properly and users can see some error messages explaining what went wrong and what they can do to make it work properly, and of course some boundary conditions. And for that purpose, for creating API tests, we use Postman, and it's pretty comfortable and easy to learn for everybody, even for people who are not programmers. They're like people who don't have developers background. Why we use it? Because, for example, it allows us to create tests that are dry. Dry stands for don't repeat yourself. We don't have to rewrite code for each test a lot of times, because Postman provides different scopes of variables. And a lot of tests that we have for all the requests on a folder level or on a collection level. And for those who are not familiar with Postman, I'll show later how it looks like and how it works. Another advantage of Postman is that it has several NPM libraries inbuilt that can be used for data generation or for creating some tests or pre-request scripts. These libraries are pretty famous. So Chai is used for assertions, Moment is used for dates and times generation. Faker creates some fake data like first names, last names, emails, and tons of other different things. And Lodash is pretty useful for pre-request scripts and for tests. This is how a typical test result tab looks like in Postman. And what we do, we usually have several tests for one request to make sure that we don't overlook anything. And usually we have, let's say, main test. Like here we have response body has the correct keys uh, and is an object. And all other things are being checked automatically for each request, like status code, schema, um, some other values that are like general for all endpoints. And this is how the test results look when they are in Newman. So Newman is a plugin for Postman that allows us to use Postman tests through CLI. And this is how test results usually look on GitHub because we use Newman there. And here are GitHub Actions, and I think it's Sufyan who's going to speak about it, right?
Yeah, sure. 1 second. Let me share my screen.
Okay.
So, talking about GitHub Actions, my name is Sufyan Bouchara. I'm a system. I'm an SRE and DevOps for Ziwo, actually working with the Calvat company. So today we are going to talk GitHub Actions. So GitHub Actions makes it easy for you to automate all your software workflows, which means you can prepare a set of tasks and you can automate them in order to get a chain of workflows that at the end you have a final software. So GitHub Actions let you build, test, and deploy your code directly from GitHub repository. So let's take a small example. For example, we have a developer that sends and pushes his code to the GitHub repository, and then we have a sort of actions that is being executed on that GitHub repository in order to execute a set of actions. For example, check the quality of the code, do some automations, do some deployments, and push the code finally. So for our case, we use GitHub Actions to check the quality of the code and also to check the automated tests of QA. So, for example, here is an example of a GitHub action. This is YAML syntax. For example, here we have all the definition of the GitHub actions in that folder .github/workflows, and we can see here this GitHub actions will be triggered while we push the code, and this is the job. The job is combined with a lot of steps. So first step, use this, do this, and run a command. For example, here, npm install-g bats. And second command, it's bats-v. So this is a basic example of a GitHub Actions definition. So we can run a workflow or a GitHub event, a GitHub action attached to an event of GitHub. For example, when we create a PR, when we add a tag, when we change the branch name, when we do any GitHub action, we have a job that can be triggered. So GitHub Actions can be triggered on different platforms and different OS. For example, here we have Linux, Mac OS, and Windows, and they are all being executed. Depends the choice of the developer. So you can do the checks on Linux, Mac OS, or Windows. So as we said, you have a choice of OS, and you can use also a self-runner environment. We will talk about this later. Also, you can have simultaneously jobs running at the same time. Also, you can use any language from Node.js to PHP to Java to Go to Rust to .NET, and you have a lot of examples existing on the GitHub Actions page. This is how it looks like. Some checks which has been passed on the GitHub Actions progress page. So here we have, for example, three jobs. We have the build, we have the test, and we have the publish, and they were all successfully done. So once they are all successfully done, then we can authorize the merge of the pull request. So I will take you to this chart, which the one we use in Zero. So the first step, we have the backend team. The backend team pushes the code to the repository. Our repository, we call it Stack. It's the API repository for backend. And we have two automated tests. We have the first one, which is the backend checks, and this one is executed once the PR is created. So once the PR is created, we have some GitHub actions that is being triggered. The first one we can see here, we have the code linting checks. So we check the length of the code, which means the quality and if everything is all right. And we have the backend test cases. So backend, they have a series of tests that we run. And if all the checks has been passed, we authorize the merge of the PR. But we have a second condition, which is once the pull request is created, we assign a tag. So Ala, as head of QA, she assigns tags to that PR and said this, it should has the tag, for example, smoke test. Once the tag is assigned to this PR, we have a sort of actions which is being triggered. So we trigger the postman Newman tests automation, and once they succeed, we have a second succeed. So if we have two succeeded jobs, we allow the merge to the production branch. At the same time, we generate some HTML reports per tag and per PR, and we send it to an S3 bucket, which is a cloud drive for records. At the same time, when we run the GitHub Actions, we store all the data of the QA, if they are passed or failed, and we send them to a DB called InfluxDB, and we can visualize all the real-time data metrics on a dashboard called Grafana. So for the stakeholders, we can share for them a dashboard saying that here is the number of tests we have created, here is the failed ones, here is the successful ones, and here is the test coverage over all the projects. And of course, if the tests failed, we have a blocked merge, and GitHub users are being notified that we have some failed tests. Is it clear for this chart?
In the chat, there are only hello, highs.
Hi. Okay, so let's go back to pricing, as this feature will be dependent to production. So GitHubs, they said for public repositories, it's free for everyone. And if you have a pro account, for example, you have 3,000 minutes per month. And this is the pricing per minute for Linux, Windows, and macOS. So to make it more free, you can have a self-hosted, which means you can create your own virtual machine and link it with your GitHub account, and then you have your own environment as a self-hosted one, and you have free free usage of the GitHub Actions. So now let's do the live demo with Ala.
Okay, let me share my screen then.
Sure.
Now we are in Postman. I can make it a little bit bigger. And we will check one short test to see how it works. So we organize all the tests in folders to make it easier to maintain and for everyone to see how it works and like for onboarding, for example. And usually all the tests have pre-request folder where we log in users that are going to participate in testing, and then the tests themselves. So as I mentioned, we have different scopes. And for example, for all the pre-request requests, we check a status code. And depending on the status code, we decide if we continue the tests or it makes no sense. For example, if something fails here when we log in an admin, it makes no sense to continue. So in the tests tab here, we see that here we have a check. If the status code is 200, then we continue. If the status code is not 200 or something else, then we stop. This is a command to stop all the tests. Another thing that is useful to use the folder or collection scope is that, for example, to access all the APIs, we use access token that is that we receive on a login. And when the user logins, we receive it in the response body. And we need to pass it as a header to each other request. And it would be a nightmare if we needed to pass it in every request here. But as you can see, there is no header as access token here. So what we do, we use folder scope for it. In pre-request script, we can pass access token like this. So we store it as an environmental variable on a login, and then we pass it to each other request here. And here are some examples of tests, just a simple one to see how it works. So what we do here, the response body is an array of objects. And we check each object to have the correct keys. And we check that each object is, that each item of that array is an object. So here is the keys test. And here in test, we have, on a folder level, we have schema test here. So we check that the type is array, like this. And so let's see how it works. We have two ways to run the tests. First of all, there's a runner, and it's useful when you write your tests and you need to check them locally. So, and you don't have to pay for it, it's for free. No GitHub minutes are being spent on it. So you run it and you see nothing failed. And if we break something, for example, we change username for our admin, and everything is going to fail now, right? So we go back to runner. Oh, here, this things that I checked. So I save responses to make it easier to debug if there are some failed tests, but I don't keep variable values and don't save cookies because it makes the tests slower. And here we see the results. So the tests failed. Let's change it back and run it on GitHub. If we go to a PR, you can see that here in labels, I already have a test, but let's remove it. And it again. So we added a label. And now we can see that some checks haven't completed yet. And here is a test running. And we need to wait just a little bit. Any questions as of now?
I don't see any. Some people responded to Sofiane that it was clear, but that's it. Pour les étudiants, n'hésitez pas à poser des questions, même en français, je pourrais les traduire au besoin. I was saying that they can ask some questions in French, and then I can translate if needed.
I can speak French if it's required.
I don't think you need to, but no questions yet.
Okay. Okay, so we can see that all checks have passed. No problems here. And this is how it looks, how Sufiane already showed us a screenshot of it.
Yeah. If you can open one of the tests details and show them the steps of a job.
Mm-hmm. Of course. Okay, let's do this. So we can go here, tomato tests. And yeah, do you want to describe it?
See, for example, here we have a sort of tests. For example, the first task is to initiate the job, and second one we run the actions checkout, and also we set up the Node.js, and then we configure the AWS credentials so we can push the reports to AWS, and then we have the command that installs Newman and the Newman reporter, and then we create the QA folder, and then we execute the checks for tags. So here we check all the tags, and if it exists, we check the content, and then we send the report to the S3 buckets, and then we share the URL. I think yeah, it's clear.
Okay. I think that's it. If there are no questions, I'm not sure if we are going to have a lesson on Postman or writing JavaScript tests, but maybe we can do later in future if it's interesting and useful.
That could be interesting for sure. I don't see any questions at the moment. Maybe did any of you already have to add in the past to write some tests for some bash or shell coding, shell scripting? That's a totally different topic, I know, but we have some of the students that will have to code some shell scripting in this week, so that's why I was asking.
I see. No, I have no experience with that.
Okay. So I don't see any questions yet.
Everything is clear then.
Yeah, I guess so. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Oh, there's one question actually. So I do not understand the link between the challenge and the presentation. Oh, okay. So that's a totally different question. Okay. I think you can go to another topic, guys. I will answer the questions about the challenges they have for the week right now. So if you want to leave and go,
Okay.
you're free to leave if you want.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys,
Thank
for
you,
this
guys.
presentation.
Bye bye.
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 Bye.